I'm going to get married soon. It was supposed to happen in April, but COVID-19 stopped it. Our apartment is mostly moved in, but we haven't been able to move in together because we haven't gotten married. This has caused a lot of weird and obscure problems. For example, my fiance is actually at my parents' house when she was supposed to live here because, she doesn't like to be alone. And I don't mind at all. This has made us consider really weird options. For example, we've thought about moving to another state just to get married and then moving back. Coeur d'Alene is only an hour's drive away from us. I even called my family to see if I could stay at somebody's house so that we could get married in Boise. Ultimately, we waited, not for any legal reason, but for religious reasons. The simple thing of marriage is a common problem throughout the world. For example, in Mexico, if you want to get married, you have to get married in a Catholic church, and if you're of a different religion, you have to go get married somewhere else. As strange as it sounds, we would end up being marriage refugees. A lot of people assume that refugees are someone who has been living in poverty and needs to be helped up out of it. They see the refugee tents and assume that that's how they've been living their entire lives. Every movie I've seen, every video game has had the idea that refugees are just sitting there next to a war. They don't get fed, they just kind of sit there, beg for lives, or look silently out a window. It makes no sense. How could you do that for years? You'd starve to death. Do you see this picture? It's Palestine. In fact, most of the Palestinian area is agriculture and not a bunch of cities. A lot of what you see is actually the encroachment of suburbia on a large agricultural area. It has nothing to do with religion and anything like that. They're actually warring over good cropland. This city you're looking at, it's actually a refugee town. Given a couple decades, everybody just stopped caring and built an entire city. The tent villages you're looking at are only there for a few years when the people decide they're just going to get on with their lives. Those in exile do not have the chance or the opportunity to just sit there and do nothing. Instead, they have to move on with their lives. They have to find something else to do, to make money, and to provide food and sustenance for others. Was your house destroyed by missiles? Then get the one room you have ready for winter. The local mob destroyed a part of your city, and a week later you go to the store to buy food. It would be a denial of the human spirit for the people to not just move on with their lives, to find things and ways to move on, even in the darkest and starkest of situations. The biggest problem with living as a refugee is you grow accustomed to the difficulties, and when you get out of it, you don't know what to do with yourself. In the same way, somebody who grew up in the ghetto has to adjust himself for the world he lives in the non-ghetto, like calling the cops or not having a firearm on him at all times. So it becomes awkward when I say that I nearly became a refugee to get married. Then I remember what every refugee I've ever met said about their terrible situation. Oh, it's not that bad. Most refugees remember their time beforehand as a glorious and peaceful and kind of wonderful time. The reason why they're exiled is usually a very short period, so they don't really associate the time before with that horrible memory. If given the chance, they would happily return to their land and to their time, in the same way that any of us would return to a time when COVID wasn't a big thing. If you want to understand a refugee's life a little bit better, here are some suggestions to help you move along. The movie To Live by Zhang Yimou is about a man trying to survive the Cultural Revolution of China. The game Papers, Please is about a crossing guard for a country that's going through terrible situations. And he has to go in, day out, trying to survive even though life is miserable. Now imagine the same person, both from the movie and from the game, moving to America and walking into a giant grocery store and trying to adapt to this new world. Now you can understand refugees.